Blessed day, dear students. Today we will start to chapter 11 Chemical Coordination and Integration in Unit 4. Physiological functions of our human body is regulated and coordinated by both neural and endocrine system. The endocrine system influences the metabolic activities by means of hormones, which are the chemical messengers released into the blood and circulated as chemical signals. Hormones may speed up or slows down or alter the activity of the target organ. The hormones secreted do not remain permanently in the blood. Hormones are chemical messengers because they act as an organic catalyst and coenzyme to perform specific function in the target organs. The target organs contain receptor molecule either on the surface or within the cell. A single hormone may have multiple effects on the single target tissue. Many hormones exhibit long-term changes like growth, puberty, and pregnancy. Hormones coordinate different physical, physiological, mental activities and maintain homeostasis. Hormones are composed of water-soluble proteins or peptides. Peptides is nothing but amino acids or fat-soluble steroids. Human endocrine system. In human, there are two glandular systems such as exocrine glands and endocrine glands. The exocrine gland secretes enzymes. The exocrine gland secretes enzymes, saliva and sweat and have ducts. Ducts is nothing but a tube that carry their substances to the membrane surfaces. Example, salivary gland, gastric gland. The endocrine glands called ductless glands because they do not have any tube. Produces hormones and lack ducts. These release the hormones to the surrounding tissue fluid. The hormones circulate around the body and eventually reach the target organs. Endocrine gland includes pituitary, thyroid, parathyroid, pineal gland, adrenal, thymus, and are called as exclusive endocrine glands. The hypothalamus, along with the neural function, also produces hormones and is considered as neuroendocrine glands. In addition, several organs such as pancreas, gastrointestinal tract epithelium, kidney, heart, gonads, and placenta, these all have endocrine tissues and are called as partial endocrine glands. So, question will be asked in this: what is exocrine and endocrine glands? First, we see hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is a small cone-shaped structure that projects downwards from the brain, ending into the pituitary stalk. It interlinks both the nervous system and the endocrine system. So, dash interlink both nervous as well as the endocrine system, hypothalamus. Though pituitary gland is known as the master endocrine gland that controls the other endocrine glands, but it is in turn controlled by hypothalamus. The hormones produced by hypothalamus act as either releasing hormone or an inhibitory hormone. In the basal region of the brain, the hypothalamic hypophyseal portal blood vessel connect hypothalamus and anterior pituitary. This allows the hypothalamic hormone to control the anterior pituitary secretion. The posterior pituitary is connected to the hypothalamus by a nerve bundle called hypothalamic hypophyseal axis. Hypothalamus maintains homeostasis. That means it maintains the equilibrium state, blood pressure, body temperature, cardio and fluid electrolyte balance of the body. As the part of the limbic system, it influences various emotional responses. Right? Next is the pituitary gland, or it is called as hypophysis. The pituitary gland is ovoid in shape and located in the sphenoid bone at the base of the brain and connected to the hypothalamic region of the brain by a stalk called infundibulum. This pituitary gland is about 1 centimeter in diameter and 0.5 gram weight. The pituitary consists of two lobes, anterior glandular adenohypophysis and posterior neurohypophysis. It is like the shape of the pea patani எப்படி சின்னதா இருக்கும் அந்த மாதிரி சைஸ்ல இருக்கும் this pituitary gland. This pituitary gland is called as the master gland, right? The anterior lobe originates from the embryonic invagination of pharyngeal epithelium called Rathek's pouch. So it's an important 2-mark question. What is Rathek's pouch? The anterior lobe of this pituitary originate from the embryonic invagination of pharyngeal epithelium. And the posterior lobe is originate from the base of the brain and as an outgrowth of hypothalamus. Anatomically, this adenohypophysis has 3 lobes: pars intermedia, pars distalis, and pars tuberalis. The neurohypophysis is also known as pars nervosa. The anterior lobe of pituitary secretes 6 tropic hormones such as growth hormone, thyroid stimulating hormone, adrenocorticotropic hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, leukotropic hormone, and a melanocyte stimulating hormone. And the posterior pituitary secretes 2 hormones, namely vasopressin and oxytocin. This you might have studied in your 10th standard itself. Hormones of adenohypophysis. The first hormone is the growth hormone. So it is known as the somatotrophic hormone. So what is meant by somatotrophic? Somatic means body cells. It is also called a somatotrophic hormone. It is a peptide hormone which promotes growth. It influences the metabolism of carbohydrate, protein, and lipids and increases the rate of protein biosynthesis in the cells. It stimulates chondrogenesis, that means cartilage formation, and osteogenesis, that means bone formation, and helps in the retention of minerals like nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, and sodium in the body. Growth hormone increases the release of fatty acid from adipose tissue and decreases the rate of glucose utilization for energy by the cells. Thus, it conserves the glucose for glucose-dependent tissues such as brain. Next is the thyroid stimulating hormone. It is a glycoprotein hormone which stimulates the thyroid gland to secrete triiodothyronine, that means T3, and thyroxine, T4. What are the 2 hormones secreted by thyroid gland? T3 and T4. TSH secretion is regulated by negative feedback mechanism. It release from the anterior pituitary is induced by the thyrotrophin releasing hormone. When thyroxine level in the blood increases, TRH act on both the pituitary and hypothalamus to inhibit the TSH secretion. That means if the thyroxine level increases in blood, so it sends information to the brain to stop the secretion. So this was controlled by this thyroid stimulating hormone. And then adrenocorticotropic hormone. It is a peptide hormone that stimulates the adrenal cortex to secrete glucocorticoids and mineralocorticoids. You know where adrenal gland is present. It is present above the kidney. It is also called as suprarenal gland. It stimulates the melanin synthesis. Melanin அப்படின்னா என்னது? நம்ம உடம்புல இருக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு pigment. So it gives black color, black skin, right? It stimulates melanin synthesis in melanocytes, induces the release of fatty acid from adipose tissue, and stimulate insulin secretion. This ACTH secretion is regulated by the negative feedback mechanism. Follicle stimulating hormone. It is a glycoprotein hormone which regulates the function of gonads, that means the ovaries and testes. In males, the FSH along with the androgens act on the germinal epithelium of the seminiferous tubule and stimulates the production of and release of sperms. That means this FSH stimulates the production of sperm. That process is called as spermatogenesis. In female, the FSH act on the ovaries and bring about the development and maturation of Graafian follicles. Next is the luteinizing hormone. LH is a glycoprotein hormone which is also known as interstitial cell stimulating hormone, ICSH. In males, this ICSH act on the interstitial cells of testes to produce male sex hormone called testosterone. Testosterone is the male sex hormone which is stimulated by this luteinizing hormone. In females, this LH along with the FSH matures the ovarian follicles. It is also called as Graafian follicle. This LH induces Ovulation maintains the corpus luteum and promote the synthesis and release of ovarian hormones. இப்போ ஓவரி வந்து மெச்சூர் ஆகிறதுக்கு காரணம் இந்த LH தான். ஸோ ஓவரி மெச்சூர் ஆகி ஓவரிக்குள்ளேருந்து எக் ரிலீஸ் ஆகும். தட் இஸ் கால்ட் அஸ் ஓவிலேஷன். ஸோ வென் த எக் இஸ் ரிலீஸ்ட், அந்த காலியாக இருக்கு இல்லையா அந்த ஓவரியில் அந்த எக் கேஸ், ஓகேவா? ஸோ தட் இஸ் கால்ட் அஸ் கார்பஸ் லூட்டம். This corpus luteum secretes a hormone called progesterone, which is helpful to maintain pregnancy. Right? FSH and LH collectively are referred to as gonadotrophins. FSH and LH are not produced during childhood. The secretion of FSH and LH starts only during the prepubertal period. That means before 10 years of age in female and also in male. Luteotrophic hormone, LTH, it is also called as luteotrophin or lactogenic hormone. It is a protein hormone which stimulates milk secretion after childbirth in females. High prolactin secretion during lactation suppresses the LH secretion and ovulation since it induces the corpus luteum, hence named as luteotrophic hormone. So luteotrophic is also called as lactogenic. Lactonale milk. It helps in secreting the milk. So during milk secretion ஆகிறப்ப LH secretion வந்து என்ன ஆகும்னா கம்மியாகும். அப்போ தான் ovulation நடக்காது. If a mother is feeding a baby, she won't get pregnancy. ஓகேவா? Because of this LTH hormone. And next one, the hormones of neurohypophysis. There are two hormones. One is vasopressin, another one is oxytocin. Vasopressin is also called as antidiuretic hormone. ADH is a peptide hormone which promotes the reabsorption of water and electrolytes by distal tubules of nephron, and thereby it reduces the loss of water through urine. Hence, it is called as antidiuretic hormone. This you might have gone through in our 8th chapter, that means excretion, right? ADH secretion is present in the collecting tubule, so which helps in reabsorption of water and prevents the loss of water. It also causes constriction of blood vessels when released in large amount and increases the blood pressure. ADH deficiency causes diabetes insipidus, which induces production of large amount of urine. So if the large amount of urine is excreted, it leads to diabetes insipidus, which is due to the deficiency of ADH. Second one is the oxytocin. That means quick birth or rapid childbirth. It is a peptide hormone which stimulates the vigorous contraction of smooth muscles of uterus during childbirth and ejection of milk from the mammary glands. Right? These are the various hormones present in pituitary gland. Pituitary gland is called as the master gland because it controls and coordinates the activities of other glands. Right? Next, we will see the glands one by one. Next gland is the pineal gland. In human, pineal gland or epiphysis is located behind the third ventricle of the brain and is formed of parenchymal cells and interstitial cells. It secretes the hormone called melatonin, which plays a central role in the regulation of circadian rhythm of our body. What is meant by circadian rhythm? Circadian rhythm is the 24-hour cycle of biological activities associated with natural periods of light and darkness. That means 24 மணி நேரம் நம்ம உடம்புல நடக்கக்கூடிய biological activities, that is called as a circadian rhythm. Example for that, sleep wake cycle, body temperature, appetite, these are some of the example. It also regulates the timing of sexual maturation of gonads. In addition, melatonin also influences metabolism, pigmentation, menstrual cycle, and defense mechanism of our body. This pineal gland plays an important role in menstrual cycle and defense mechanism of our body. That means it produces immunity. The next gland is the thyroid gland. The butterfly-shaped thyroid gland is a bilobed gland located below the larynx on each side of the upper trachea. It is the largest endocrine gland in the body. Its two lateral lobes are connected by a median tissue mass called isthmus. Each lobe is made up of many lobules. The lobules consist of follicles. This is called as acini. Each acinus is lined with glandular, cuboidal or squamous epithelium. The lumen of acinus is filled with colloid, a thick glycoprotein mixture consisting of thyroglobulin molecules. Hormones of the thyroid gland are often called the metabolic hormone. The follicular cells of thyroid gland secretes two hormones, namely triiodothyronine, that is T3, and thyroxine or tetraiodothyronine, that is T4. The parafollicular cells of, or it is called as C cells of thyroid gland, secrete a hormone called thyrocalcitonin. Iodine is essential for the normal synthesis of thyroid hormone. Thyroid releasing hormone from the hypothalamus stimulates the adenohypophysis to secrete this thyroid stimulating hormone, which in turn stimulates the thyroid gland to secrete the thyroid hormone. Thyroid hormone shows a negative feedback mechanism on the hypothalamus and pituitary. That means it sends a negative feedback mechanism. The இப்போ bloodல வந்து thyroxine level அதிகமாக இருக்குன்னா the information is gone to this through this thyroid stimulating hormone to hypothalamus. Hypothalamus உடனே என்ன பண்ணும், அதை inhibit பண்ணும், stop பண்ணும். புரிஞ்சுதா? secretion stop பண்ணும். So this is the negative feedback mechanism, right? If you see the functions of thyroxine T4, thyroxine regulates the basal metabolic rate. What is BMR? Basal metabolic rate means the amount of heat produced in our body in a unit period of time. That is called as basal metabolic rate and the body heat production. It stimulates protein synthesis and promotes growth. It is essential for the development of skeletal and nervous system. Thyroxine plays an important role in maintaining blood pressure. It reduces the serum cholesterol levels. Optimum level of thyroxine in blood is necessary for gonadal function. If you see the functions of thyrocalcitonin, so it may be asked in 2-mark question, what is the function of TCT? What are the functions of TCT? TCT, thyrocalcitonin, is a polypeptide hormone which regulates blood calcium and phosphate level. It reduces the blood calcium level and opposes the effect of parathyroid hormone. Next, we move on to the parathyroid gland. In human, 4 tiny parathyroid glands are found in the posterior wall of the thyroid glands. This gland is composed of 2 types of cells, the chief cells and the oxyphil cells. So, what are the 2 types of cells? Chief cells and oxyphil cells. The chief cell secretes parathyroid hormone and the functions of oxyphil cells are not known. So, the parathyroid hormone or parathormone. So, this parathyroid hormone is an hyperglycemic hormone. That means it increases the calcium level in the blood. It is a peptide hormone involved in controlling the calcium and phosphate homeostasis. The secretion of this PTH is controlled by calcium level in the blood. It increases the blood calcium level by stimulating the osteoclast. Osteo means bone, clast means destroying. So it destroys the bone to dissolve the bone matrix. As a result, calcium and phosphate are released into the blood. This parathyroid hormone enhances the reabsorption of calcium and excretion of phosphate by the renal tubule and promotes activation of vitamin D to increase calcium absorption by intestinal mucosal cells. Next, we move on to the thymus gland. Thymus gland is partially an endocrine and partially a lymphoid organ. Thymus is a partially an endocrine gland and it's partially a lymphoid organ. Lymphoid organs means it produces immunity to our body. So it is a bilobe structure located just above the heart and aorta and behind the sternum. Sternum is the bone that is present in the rib cage, right? So it is covered by a fibrous capsule. Anatomically it is divisible into outer cortex and inner medulla. It secretes 4 hormones such as thymulin, thymosin, thymopoietin and thymic humoral factor. The primary functions of thymus is the production of immunocompetent. தைமஸோட வேலையே நம்மளுக்கு இம்யூன் சிஸ்டத்தை என்ஹான்ஸ் பண்ணும். T lymphocytes or T cells which provide cell-mediated immunity. So what is cell-mediated immunity? So cell-mediated means ஒரு குறிப்பிட்ட செல்லை பார்த்து அழிக்கிறது, அதுதான் cell-mediated. For example, cancer cells, right? Old age people are often sick. Why? Old age people வந்து sick ஆகுறாங்க ஏன்? Due to the degeneration of thymus gland, thymosin level decreases. As a result, the immunity of old age people becomes weak and cause sickness. வயசு ஆக ஆக தைமஸ் கிளாண்ட் டீஜெனரேட் ஆகும், தைமோசின் லெவல் கம்மியாகும். அப்போ நோய் எதிர்ப்பு சக்தி கம்மியாகிறதுனால ஓல்ட் ஏஜ் பீப்புள் பிகம் ஆஃபன் வெரி சிக். நெக்ஸ்ட் ஒன் இஸ் த adrenal gland. A pair of adrenal glands are located on the anterior end of the kidneys. Hence, it's also called as suprarenal glands. Anatomically, the outer region is called as cortex and the inner region is called as medulla. The adrenal cortex have three distinct zones, namely zona glomerulosa, zona fasciculata, and zona reticularis. So, what are the three distinct regions of adrenal cortex? Zona glomerulosa, zona fasciculata, and zona reticularis. Zona glomerulosa, an outer thin layer, constitutes 15% of adrenal cortex and secretes mineralocorticoids. Zona fasciculata, the middle widest layer, constitutes 75% of the adrenal cortex and secretes glucocorticoids such as cortisol, corticosterone, and trace amounts of adrenal androgen and estrogen. Zona reticularis, an inner zone of the adrenal cortex, constitutes 10% of adrenal cortex and it secretes adrenal androgen, trace amounts of estrogen and glucocorticoids. So it may be asked in 3-mark question, what are the three distinct zones of adrenal cortex and write its functions. Next is the adrenal medulla. It is the central part of the adrenal gland and is composed of ovoid and columnar cells which are found around the network of blood capillaries. Adrenaline and noradrenaline are the two hormones secreted by the adrenal medulla. Both adrenaline and noradrenaline are also called catecholamines. So what are catecholamines? This adrenaline and noradrenaline are catecholamines, right? If you see the functions of adrenal hormones, glucocorticoid stimulates gluconeogenesis, lipolysis, and proteolysis. Lysis means breakdown. So it breaks down the lipid, protein, and the glucose. Cortisol is a glucocorticoid involving in maintaining the cardiovascular and kidney function. It produces anti-inflammatory reaction and suppresses the immune response. It stimulates the RBC production and it is also known as stress combat hormone. So which is called as a stress combat hormone cortisol. Right? Next is the mineralocorticoids. Mineralocorticoids regulates water and electrolyte balance of our body. Aldosterone stimulates the reabsorption of sodium and water and eliminates potassium and phosphate ions through excretion. Thus, it helps in maintaining the electrolyte, osmotic pressure, and blood pressure. Adrenal androgen plays a role in hair growth in the axial regions, pubis, and face during puberty. The adrenal medulla secretes the hormones adrenaline and noradrenaline and are referred to as 3F hormone. 3F means flight, fight, and fright. I repeat, fight, flight, and fright. Adrenaline increases liver glycogen breakdown into glucose and increases the release of fatty acids from fat cells. During emergency, it increases the heartbeat rate and blood pressure. It stimulates the smooth muscles of the cutaneous, that means the skin, and the visceral arteries to decrease blood flow. It increases blood flow to the skeletal muscles, thereby increases the metabolic rate of skeletal muscles, cardiac muscles, and the nervous tissues. So these are some of the glands that is present in our body.